Chosen one, this message didn't find you by accident. God led you here for a reason. Everything you've been through, every loss, every delay, every confusing moment, it was all preparing you for this truth. For a long time, God couldn't reveal certain things to you because you weren't ready yet. Your spirit had to mature. Your heart had to heal. Your mind had to expand. But now the veil is lifting. The truth is coming to light, not to hurt you, but to free you. Let's break this down into 7 chapters for deeper understanding. Before we dive in, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because this message isn't just content. It's a divine confirmation for the chosen ones, and a heartfelt thank you to everyone who's been supporting through Super Thanks. God bless you abundantly. Your support, your faith, and your presence are seen in heaven, and they do not go unnoticed. To all of you who continually watch, listen, and align with this frequency, I am deeply grateful. If your spirit resonates with this word, type 77 in the comments right now. That number isn't random, it's a sacred signal to the Most High that you are ready to receive revelation, clarity, and the truth God has been preparing you for. Not everyone will stay to the end of this message. Only the truly chosen will. Those who remain will gain divine understanding, prophetic insight, and a deeper awareness of their calling, authority, and purpose. This isn't something you hear once and forget. This is living truth, a spiritual blueprint unfolding piece by piece. Watch it again whenever your spirit calls you, because each time, another layer of God's revelation will be unlocked. Let's begin. Chapter 1. God hid the truth until you were strong enough to see it. Chosen one. There were seasons where you begged God for answers. You cried out in confusion, asking why people you loved turned against you, why doors that once seemed open suddenly slammed shut, and why pain seemed to chase you no matter how pure your intentions were. You searched for understanding, thinking maybe you had done something wrong, but heaven stayed silent. Not because God was ignoring you, but because you weren't ready for the truth He was protecting you from. If God had revealed everything too soon, it would have crushed you. The truth, in its fullness, carries weight, and back then, your heart wasn't yet strong enough to carry it. You would have questioned your worth. You would have tried to fix what was meant to fall apart. You would have mistaken manipulation for love, loyalty for bondage, and pain for purpose. So instead of exposing everything at once, God chose to heal you in layers. He covered you while He corrected you, shaped you while He shielded you. There were people in your life who wore masks, situations that weren't what they appeared to be, and opportunities that would have destroyed your peace, disguised as blessings. But God, in His mercy, hid the truth behind closed doors. He delayed answers not to frustrate you, but to fortify you. Because if He had shown you the true motives of some people too early, you would have tried to keep them close. You would have argued with divine removal. You would have defended what heaven was trying to dismantle. God had to train your discernment. He had to let you experience pain that refined your spirit and rejection that sharpened your intuition. Every silent season was a classroom. Every disappointment was a lesson. And every unanswered prayer was divine preparation. He was teaching you how to see, not with your eyes, but with your spirit. How to sense energy, read intentions, and move by wisdom instead of emotion. Now, chosen one, you're ready. Your spirit has matured, your heart no longer breaks over what leaves, because you understand that what exits your life was never meant to carry you into your destiny. Your eyes have been anointed to see beyond appearances, to discern between what looks good and what is actually God. You've learned that not every rejection was evil. Some were redirections. Not every ending was punishment. Some were protection. Not every delay was denial. Some were divine timing at work. And now that you can see clearly, the truth no longer breaks you. It builds you. It strengthens your walk and deepens your faith. You realize that God never abandoned you in the dark seasons. He was there in the silence, shielding you from the things your heart couldn't yet handle. Every tear you cried was watering the seed of wisdom that's now blossoming in your life. Chosen one, understand this. You were never forgotten. You were being fortified. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. God hid the truth until you became strong enough to see it without losing yourself. What you once called heartbreak was heaven's way of clearing your path. What you once thought was the end was actually the beginning of your transformation. The truth didn't destroy you, it awakened you. Chapter 2. Your suffering was sacred training. Every tear you cried, every lonely night, every silent battle, it wasn't wasted. Heaven was watching. God was molding you through pressure, chiseling your character through pain, and refining your soul so you could carry divine wisdom without crumbling under the weight of it. Those who haven't suffered deeply can't carry deep revelation, and that's why your life couldn't be easy. Every disappointment, every delay, and every heartbreak was part of your curriculum for greatness, chosen one. The reason your path was harder than most is because your purpose is greater than most. You were chosen for something rare, something sacred, and rare assignments require rare endurance. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. You were being trained in private for a public assignment. God was developing muscles in you that no comfort zone could ever build. The heartbreaks taught you compassion. The betrayals taught you discernment. And the loneliness taught you how to hear God's voice in stillness. In those silent seasons when no one understood you, God was drawing you closer to Him. You learned to depend on His presence. When people disappeared, you discovered peace in solitude, power in surrender, and identity in your wilderness. You were learning to walk by faith, not sight, to trust what you couldn't yet see, to believe in what you couldn't yet feel. Heaven had to isolate you so that when your elevation came, you'd be anchored, not arrogant. You thought you were being punished, but you were being purified. You thought you were forgotten, but you were being formed. You thought your prayers were unanswered, but they were being stored for an appointed time. God hid you not because you were unworthy, but because He was building something sacred inside you. He was shaping your heart into one that could handle both blessing and betrayal without losing balance. He was making sure your spirit could carry the weight of influence without collapsing under pressure. Now you can finally see that everything you went through was sacred training. Every wound carried wisdom. Every delay developed depth. It wasn't random, it was refinement. You were in the fire, but you didn't burn. You were pressed, but not crushed. You were broken, but not destroyed. Through every trial, God was proving that what He placed in you was indestructible. And now, when you speak, your words carry authority. When you move with spiritual precision. You're no longer easily shaken because you've seen what survival really means. You're not just a survivor. You're a vessel forged in holy fire. The suffering that once tried to destroy you became the very tool that shaped your destiny. Chosen one, your pain was not pointless. It was sacred. Your scars are not shame. They're symbols of transformation. What once broke you now builds you. What once made you cry now makes you wise. And the same fire that refined you is the fire that will light your path forward. You didn't just endure suffering, you were trained by it. And that training made you unstoppable. Chapter 3. God removed people who couldn't handle your truth. Chosen one of the hardest truths to accept is that not everyone who started with you was meant to finish with you. You prayed for loyalty, but God answered with separation. You asked for clarity, and He showed you the truth through distance. It hurt, but what looked like loss was divine protection. God saw conversations you didn't hear. He saw intentions you couldn't sense. He saw the jealousy hidden behind smiles, and the envy disguised as support. Chapter 4. You were being tested to see if you'd still trust God in the dark. Before the truth could be revealed, God had to see if your faith could survive silence. There were seasons where you couldn't feel His presence, where your prayers seemed unanswered, and where His promises looked delayed beyond reason. You wondered if He had forgotten you. You questioned if you had somehow missed your destiny. You cried out for confirmation, but all you heard was quiet. Yet even in that silence, God was closer than your breath. Chosen one, when God goes quiet, He's not gone. He's observing. The silence was not punishment. It was examination. He was watching how you would move when the lights went out. Would you still pray when the miracles didn't manifest? Would you still worship when the pain didn't end? Would you still trust Him when you couldn't trace Him? Heaven wanted to see if your faith was dependent on feelings or rooted in conviction. And you passed. You didn't even know it, but you did. You kept walking when you couldn't see the road. You kept believing when your heart was breaking. You stayed faithful when every reason to quit was right in front of you. You prayed through the tears, served through the confusion, and waited through the warfare. That endurance became evidence that your faith wasn't shallow. It was sanctified. God saw you pressing on when no one was clapping. He saw you staying pure when compromise looked easier. He saw you choosing obedience when rebellion felt justified. Every time you said, "God, I trust you," in the middle of uncertainty, it echoed through the heavens. Angels recorded your perseverance as proof of your spiritual maturity. Heaven marked you as trustworthy, not because you were perfect, but because you were consistent, chosen one. What you didn't realize is that faith that has never been tested can't be trusted. God had to see if you'd still believe when nothing made sense. The silence was the proving ground. The darkness was the classroom. The delay was divine preparation, because what's coming next in your life requires unshakable trust. Trust that's been tried by fire and proven by faith. Now that you've passed the test, God is revealing the truth. You were never alone in the darkness. Every step was ordered. Every tear was counted. Every unanswered prayer was being woven into divine timing. The silence wasn't absence. It was strategy. God was rearranging your circumstances, removing obstacles, and aligning blessings behind the scenes. He had to test your heart before He could trust your hands. He had to see if you'd still praise Him when you couldn't see progress. Because only those who can worship in the wilderness are ready for the promise. Only those who can trust in the unseen are qualified to walk in the extraordinary. Chosen one, this season of silence is over. The test is complete. God is turning the lights back on. And when you look around, you'll realize that He never left. He was guiding, shaping, and strengthening you in the dark, so you could carry His light with confidence. Every delay was divine. Every closed door was redirection. Every lonely night was sacred training. Chapter 5. The truth about your calling. Chosen one, you're not ordinary, and deep down, you've always known it. That quiet awareness inside you was never pride. It was purpose whispering your name. That's why you never blended in, no matter how hard you tried. That's why you felt misunderstood by friends, family, and even yourself at times. Life has always demanded more from you because heaven placed more in you. You weren't built for average. You were crafted for assignment. Your calling was never about comfort. It was about capacity. You were chosen to carry something divine, something world-changing. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every delay was training for the mantle you now carry. You were being taught how to endure, how to discern, and how to lead with wisdom instead of ego. The truth is, you are not just surviving for yourself. You are walking proof that God still transforms, restores, and resurrects what the world thought was lost. Chosen one, your calling is sacred. It's not just a role, it's a responsibility. God didn't put you here to blend in with the world. He set you apart to awaken it. You are a living message, a walking mirror that reflects what divine restoration looks like. The pain you endured was prophetic. It prepared you to understand those who are still in it. The people who once broke your heart were instruments used to break your pride, your dependence on others, and your attachment to illusions. The truth God is revealing now is that you are His messenger, His example, His vessel of change. You've been entrusted with influence, not by title but by testimony. Everything you went through wasn't just for you. It was for the ones who will hear your voice and recognize themselves in your story. You are the bridge between struggle and strength, confusion and clarity, darkness and light. You carry keys that unlock healing for others because you've lived what they're living. Your story carries power because it's a testimony of transformation. What once broke you will now bless others through your voice, your presence, your purpose. That's why you had to experience loss, so you could teach restoration. That's why you faced betrayal, so you could speak about discernment. That's why you were isolated, so you could learn how to stand alone with God and never again depend on false support. Everything you thought disqualified you actually qualified you. Chosen one. You are chosen to walk in truth so others trapped in illusion can see the way out. That's why God had to clean your vision. He had to show you the difference between real and fake, divine and deceptive, spirit and appearance. You can't lead people out of darkness if you're still afraid of it. That's why He allowed you to face your shadows, to master them. Now you no longer fear the dark because you are the light sent into it. Your calling isn't about fame, it's about freedom. It's not about applause, it's about awakening. You are the kind of leader that heaven creates in silence and reveals in divine timing. Everything about your journey has been orchestrated with precision. Nothing was wasted, not even the waiting. God was shaping a warrior with wisdom, a leader with empathy, and a healer with humility. Chapter 6. The truth about your authority. Chosen one, you've spent years underestimating your power. You've prayed small prayers, thought small thoughts, and dimmed your light to make others comfortable. But now God is revealing the truth. You carry divine authority. The same power that raised Christ from the dead lives inside you. You were never meant to live in fear or limitation. You were meant to move mountains with your faith. Heaven placed within you the same creative energy that formed galaxies, split seas, and healed nations. For so long, you saw yourself as broken, waiting for rescue. But God says, "You are the rescuer I sent." You've been equipped with authority that doesn't come from position, status, or title. It comes from identity. You are royalty in the Spirit. You carry heaven's endorsement. When you speak, realms respond. When you pray, the atmosphere adjusts. When you walk into a room, light shifts and darkness trembles. That's why your presence unsettles the unhealed. It carries a frequency too high for wounded souls to handle. You were never meant to blend in. You were sent to realign what's been distorted. The truth is, the enemy feared your awakening more than your pain. Pain didn't threaten him. Awareness did. That's why he attacked your confidence, your mind, your worth, and your sense of direction. He hoped you'd keep doubting your power long enough to never use it. But now that revelation has reached your spirit, his time is up. The moment you realize that authority isn't something you earn, it's something you are, you became unstoppable. You no longer beg for breakthrough, you command it. You no longer chase validation, you walk in revelation. Chosen one, your authority was built through obedience. Every season of isolation, every test of faith, every act of discipline sharpened your spiritual edge. Heaven didn't hand you power overnight. It entrusted it gradually as your character matured to match your calling. You learned that authority without humility becomes arrogance, and power without purity becomes poison. That's why God took His time with you. He didn't just want to give you authority. He wanted to make sure you could carry it. You're not a victim of circumstances. You're a creator of change. When you speak, heaven echoes. When you decree, reality aligns. You have the right to rebuke storms, break curses, and release blessings, not because of who you are in the world, but because of who you are in the Spirit. The universe responds to the chosen because they speak from alignment, not ego. You are not commanding from pride. You are operating from purpose. That's why what you speak carries weight. That's why things around you shift when you declare peace, healing, or favor. Chosen one, you are the embodiment of divine authority walking in human form. You are the voice heaven uses to silence confusion. You are the hand God moves through to restore order. The reason you face so much resistance was because the darkness saw your potential long before you did. Chapter 7. You are now walking in revelation. Chosen one. You've reached a divine turning point, a level few ever reach. You've walked through confusion, silence, heartbreak, and long nights that felt endless. You've questioned your strength, your purpose, even your faith. But through it all, God was preparing you. Every unanswered question was shaping your discernment. Every delay was stretching your faith. Every loss was refining your spirit. Every heartbreak was chiseling away what wasn't meant to stay. And now, because you didn't give up, heaven can finally trust you with revelation. You've transitioned from understanding with your mind to perceiving with your spirit. You no longer live based on appearances. You live based on alignment. What once made you anxious now makes you alert. You've learned to discern timing, to sense truth beneath words, and to see purpose in pain. You no longer ask, "Why me?" because you now understand it was always meant to be you. God chose you as the vessel through which His revelation would flow because you were willing to be broken, refined, and rebuilt. You're no longer led by emotion. You're led by discernment. You don't react from pain anymore. You respond with wisdom. You no longer chase validation. You move with divine vision. You've learned to be still when others panic, to listen when others complain, and to trust even when the outcome isn't visible. You now understand that revelation doesn't come to the distracted. It comes to the devoted. You've become sensitive to the Spirit, steady in storms, and silent in moments where others would have shouted. Heaven watches how you move, and now it recognizes you as one who carries understanding. Now the truth is clear. Every season of confusion had a purpose. Every delay was divine. Every loss was positioning. You were never abandoned. You were being awakened. God was not ignoring you. He was initiating you. He was teaching you to hear His whisper above the world's noise, to recognize His hand even when it moved in silence. He hid you so He could reveal Himself through you. He shielded you from noise so your spirit could tune into the right frequency. You thought the silence meant absence, but it was actually instruction. God is saying, now you're ready to see. Now you're ready to know. Now you're ready to walk in truth. You've passed the test of perception. You now see beyond faces and into spirits. You now discern energy before words. You now understand that what looks like loss in the natural is often victory in the spirit. You've graduated from emotional reactions to spiritual responses. You can tell when something carries peace or when it carries poison. You don't need explanations anymore. Your spirit recognizes truth instantly. That is revelation. This is your awakening. The eyes of your spirit are open. You can see patterns, cycles, and divine timing clearer than ever before. You know when something carries God's fingerprint and when it doesn't. You've developed spiritual maturity, the kind that can't be shaken by temporary storms. You're no longer chasing what glitters. You're drawn only to what glows with God's light. You recognize now that not everything that looks like opportunity is divine, and not every delay is denial. You move with patience because you know timing is protection. Chosen one, the veil has lifted. You're no longer guessing. You're guided. The mystery is over. You now see how everything worked together. The pain, the pruning, the pressure, the pause. You see how God used rejection as redirection and isolation as instruction. You understand now that revelation doesn't just open your eyes. It transforms your entire perception of life. You no longer see chaos. You see construction. You no longer see endings. You see evolution. What others call coincidence, you call confirmation. You are who God says you are, chosen, equipped, unstoppable. You've stepped into your role as a vessel of divine understanding. You no longer walk blindly. You walk boldly. You no longer wait for signs. You are the sign that God is still speaking through His people. When you speak, heaven backs your words. When you move, doors align in your favor. You are not just walking in revelation. You have become a revelation in motion.